Alright, lovelies. Welcome to my tier list of Rave films. I really enjoyed doing my last tier list of David Fincher films, and I thought I'm just going to copy the same template and do the exact same thing again, but this time with a little bit more research and insight. This is Heidi. Heidi, you visible? Oh no, what have I done? What have I done, Heidi? I've broken everything. So have you. So I go to some raves. Used to go to a lot more a couple of years ago. I don't go to so many anymore. No particular reason, just kind of gone off them. I like the idea of raves, but I would rather stay at home and be warm and cozy. I don't really feel like I need to go out to these things anymore. But I'm aware that I'm, old and stuff now. So there's the age of like 20 something where you go to raves to get, a bit tipsy, and then it seems like you kind of skip until age 60 where you go to raves to be that guy who goes to raves at age 60. So if I've just described you in either of those categories, then welcome to my video. If you've never been to a rave before or have no idea what I'm talking about, then welcome to the video also, and this is my tier list of rave films. Now, this is kind of inspired by the release of a recent film called How to Have Sex, which came out a couple of weeks ago, I think. It's an independent film from the UK, which really resonated with me. I've also done a video just recently, which should be appearing up there, talking about... Oh, it's my cat there, Heidi. Just, she's a big fan of rave films as well. But yes, you'll see in that video up there that I did a bit of a more serious video about what makes a good rave film. So yeah, I'm inspired. Let's say I'm inspired. I'm wearing my Warehouse Project garb to really prove that I'm into raves. I'm wearing merchandise from my favourite rave venue in Manchester, mainly because the White Hotel doesn't have merchandise, but that's not my problem. Anyway, let us begin. So anyone who knows me will know that I'm a big fan of the film Human Traffic.
Nice one, brother!
And it's kind of seen as the ultimate rave film for a lot of people. Well, me. So I thought I'd start with this one. Not once, but 3 times. Just to really hammer in the fact that this is a good film. Human Traffic was released in 1999, top of my head, just popped out there, and is a film about a group of friends who go out for a party, a weekend of partying. That's it. Like, that's the whole premise of a film, and it tries to be nothing more than that. Directed by Justin Kerrigan, who has done very little ever since. And I also found out that this film had a £2.2 million budget, which in 1999 terms is quite significant for a first feature film, independent. Yeah, it didn't do particularly well in the box office, in cinemas, when it was released, but it's become a cult favourite, mainly because if you ever go to a festival in the UK, you're going to hear people shouting, "Nice one, brother," when everyone's trying to sleep in the campsites at night. Over and over again. And that's from this film. So I would be a fool to rank this anywhere else than S tier. So that's exactly where I'm going to put it. If you haven't seen Human Traffic and you have any interest in rave culture, England, dance music, Wales, the country, not the animal, then you definitely should try and watch this at some point. But do not watch the remixed version, which is the next film on my list. Human Traffic Remixed is a DVD that was released sometime, I don't know, in the last 20 years, I guess, and it is released on the excuse that it's remixed and fresh and new, and even a DVD box on the back says new CGI effects and deleted scenes added back in. Now the thing is, those scenes were deleted for a reason. I'm not saying Human Traffic as the film in its first place is a perfect film, it's not, but for what it was doing and what it was trying to achieve, it was essentially perfect. Wait, I've just contradicted myself, but you know what I'm saying, right? So, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Now, I don't really know the reason as to why Human Traffic Remixed exists. It could just be to make some more money. It could be to do with music licensing, like maybe some of the original songs were too costly for a successful film. and so they replaced them. I've read online that the director, Justin Sheridan, had no involvement in the remixed DVD, so that kind of makes sense. And I've just watched it today, and yeah, it serves no purpose. It shouldn't exist, and there's no reason for it to exist. So I'm going to put this quite low down in a D tier, which is very contradictory, very controversial, but that's what I've done here, because the original film was, leave it as it is. Whatever the reason for this DVD existing, I don't agree with it, and you shouldn't either. As a YouTuber, I now have clout and opinion and influence, so there you go. Just ignore its existence. It's down here in D, so ignore it. Although, I will say that the DVD has a few interesting special features, such as a few student films from the creators of Human Traffic, and a really interesting, quite raw, behind-the-scenes video, about half an hour, produced by the BBC, talking about the making of the film. And it's not like making videos that you see on YouTube now or on TV now, where it's all, oh, it's a great time working with these people and blah blah blah. It's quite honest about how it wasn't great working with these people. So if you do find Human Traffic remixed DVD in some kind of shop or bin, okay, get it for those features, but also get the original Human Traffic DVD or Blu-ray or whatever, so you can watch that one and just have the remixed one as a nice little, oh look, I'm a DVD collector on your shelf, And so we come to Human Traffic, but I'm not talking about the original Human Traffic. There's been a sequel to Human Traffic, kind of announced, sort of, and has been talked about online, but hasn't actually come to light. And we're now 24 years from the original release of the film, so any kind of sequel is going to be very similar to the Trainspotting 2 sequel, which was a long time after the original film. I think the synopsis that I've read online is one of the main characters from the first film got jailed for marijuana distribution and has returned to the home city of Cardiff to have a great party or something like that. Now, on that premise, I would watch it and I'd probably really enjoy it, because I like Trainspotting 2. I like to see where people are and how people have matured and aged or not. We end up watching Trainspotting 2 tonight, actually, after this video, because yeah, it's a good film. However, I think you can do more with it than that. I've also just read that Justin Sheridan, the director of the original film, has last year announced that he will not be involved in any Human Traffic projects going forward, even though some of the original cast have signed on to a sequel. I don't know what's going on, basically, but if I was to write a Human Traffic sequel, it would be around the same sort of lines that everyone's reunited for a big party to try and relive the experiences of the 90s, but the focus is on drugs, as most of these films are. In Human Traffic, the original film, we looked at how ecstasy, or MDMA or E, was the drug of choice for most people who were going to raves at that time. We're now in 2023, and there's been many articles online and news and things like that about how ketamine has now replaced MDMA as the drug of choice. So it could be interesting to see these characters who were raised in the euphoric ecstasy generation and now surrounded by people who are on a very different drug. Yeah, that would be what I would make if I was making the film. Please, whoever's involved in Human Traffic 2, if you need a director or a writer, I'm not very good at writing, but if you want a writer or something, anyone, you want someone involved who knows modern drug culture, as you can tell that I am very clearly on it with the lights and stuff, I'll do it. I'll make your film. Anyway, so yes, on that premise, on the basis that Human Traffic 2 will exist at some point, and it will be what I've just described and has the original cast, I'm going to put this up at A. Yeah, I realise that this is pointless and ridiculous because the film doesn't actually exist yet. It's my tier list, I can do what I want. The next film in my tier list, and also just bear in mind these are in no particular order, the next film is 24 Hour Party People, starring Steve Coogan doing his best Alan Partridge impression. If you know, you know. If you don't know, Steve Coogan is Alan Partridge. Dan! 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 I also really like it when people explain their jokes too much. Dan! Fine. So that was what I just did there. 24 Hour Party People, it's about the person who is involved in essentially creating and popularising Manchester. Manchester was a musical movement in the late 80s, early 90s, which really popularised Manchester as far as the music scene is concerned, with bands like New Order, Happy Mondays, etc. All kind of evolving around this club called the Hacienda, which is now closed down, unfortunately, and I never got to visit the Hacienda. But the Hacienda spirit lives on to this day with Hacienda Classical, which is a band comprising of an orchestra. And yeah, so the Hacienda spirit still lives on, but the actual Hacienda building is just a bunch of flats, I believe. So this film, 24-Hour Party People, is just about that. It's presented as a mockumentary, but it is real, if you know what I mean. It has some of the original musicians and people involved in that scene in the film, and Steve Coogan plays a journalist who at the time was quite a notorious journalist, who then became the record label owner and the club owner, etc. I wouldn't say this is necessarily a rave film, although it features raves and parties and clubs. And obviously Manchester is a big movement that I'm quite interested in and is very important to UK dance music and UK music culture in general. If you haven't seen 24-Hour Party People and you have any interest in English music, then it's a strong recommend from me for this one. That goes in A tier. Next on my list of films that are related to raves or parties or dance music or stuff is Berlin Calling. It's a tragic comedy, according to Wikipedia, about a music producer making Berlin trance kind of music who goes a bit too hard on drugs and has a psychotic break. He then spends most of the film in the psychiatric hospital working on his next album whilst not only coming off drugs but also trapped in this psychiatric hospital. I hadn't heard of this film until recently. I did a search on Reddit to see what films I could use in this list and came up with a few that I've never actually seen before, and this is one of them. It's not really a rave film, and so my rating will be based on the fact that it's not really a rave film. It has rave elements, like it has dance music and it has drugs and it has some shots of him DJing at clubs and things like that, and it's called Berlin Calling. Like, Berlin is an important place in the world for dance music. In a way, it is rave, but also it doesn't fit my criteria for a rave film. However, calling it a tragic comedy, I also wouldn't agree with. Like, it's not funny at all. It's quite a serious subject matter, and I don't know if it's from personal experience with things like that, but I wouldn't say there's anything comedic about it. Good performances. It's a good film, it's worth a watch. On the criteria of rave movies, this is going to be in B tier because it's not a bad film, it's just not a rave film. And if you know the title of this video, it's about rave films, or rave movies if you're American. What is the difference between films and movies? Like, they seem to be interchangeable, but movies is more, I don't know, American or big budget popcorn films, popcorn movies. Next on my list is Blade. Now, bear in mind, I'm not talking about any kind of Marvel films. The majority of the Blade film, I'm talking about the opening to Blade, the original Blade with Wesley Snipes, where he goes to a vampire rave. I may be biased on this one a little bit. Not a fan of Blade 2 and Trinity or whatever the third one was called. That opening scene in that nightclub was my DVD test film. So if I was testing out a new sound system or a new configuration of my speakers or a new TV or whatever, Blade is one of the first DVDs I'd test. It's Blade and Lost in Space for some reason. But Blade was up there. It was always one of the first ones I'd pop in the DVD player. It has great music, great visuals, and it was, for those first 5 minutes, before I'd ever been to a rave, that was what I imagined raves would be like. Obviously not with the vampires and the murders. We've talked before on my David Fincher tier list about murders. Not what you want from a party. So, I don't know, I'm conflicted on this one. Again, I'm only basing this on the first 5 or 10 minutes of this film. The rest of it can go away. That rave scene, if you've seen Blade, you'll know what I'm talking about. It was excellent. And if you switch out the vampire stuff for other things that you indulge in, such as alcohol or drugs or blood, then it is a rave film, just with a very strange second and third act involving vampires. So on that basis, I'm going to rank Blade in, I don't know, I've just kind of contradicted everything. I don't know what I'm doing now. Where would you rank Blade? I'll leave this one down here until you comment in the comments bit and let me know where you'd put Blade on those criteria that I've just made up. I'm also going to move one of these. Hang on, this should be at the end. You didn't see that. Next is Climax. Climax is a film by director Gaspar Noé, I probably butchered that pronunciation, in which a French dance troupe celebrate the end of their rehearsals with a party. based on an actual thing that happened in the 90s. Someone spiked the punch, like the drink stuff, with LSD. Some people handle it better than others. I would say that this fits quite well in this criteria because we're talking about electronic music, we're talking about drugs, we're talking about parties, and the soundtrack is wonderful. It's not an easy view, like there's some content in this which is quite upsetting, so not something that you would put on at a party, but I love this film. In fact, I love most of Gaspar Noé's films, and I will probably do another list like this based on his films alone. Just a disclaimer also that none of these films are necessarily bad, well, apart from a few that I'll get to later. If I rank them lower on this tier list, it's because they don't really fit the criteria of rave movies. So under that, I'm going to put Climax at B there, just because it's not fun. It's excellent, but it's not fun. It's not rave. It's not like a rave is supposed to be a fun experience. It's supposed to be a good time. You know, inhibitions are gone. You're surrounded by people who are in a similar mind space to you, so you can kind of let go and be free. And I think it also comes down to the drug type, like the drug that's used. Most of these films are going to be featuring ecstasy, MDMA, which is the same thing. Ecstasy is a pill. MDMA is the main ingredient of said pill, ideally. But I'm not, this isn't a drug channel, so moving on. Whereas Climax features LSD, which is something that can last over 12 hours, and you can't really control it, so it can lead to amazing, wonderful times. However, it can also lead to horrific experiences, and that's what Climax is showing, both sides of this. Without the use of visuals and very little camera trickery, it definitely incites a moment of horror, and like I said, it's not an easy watch, so that's going at B. Again, next to Berlin Calling, which is also a film about unpleasant experiences. Next, we have Beats. There were two films released in 2019 called Beats, one from Chicago and one from Scotland. Both a little bit connected to dance music or electronic music. I think the Chicago film was hip-hop, but near enough. The one I'm talking about here is the UK one. This is a film about two teenagers at the pivotal moment in the UK where electronic music, or raves, were essentially outlawed. There's an interesting part in this film where they're talking about the law, saying that something like a succession of repetitive beats in a public space is now banned. And so this party is, I believe, on the eve of that law coming into play. Maybe wrong, I'm not a historian. This film is essentially a bromance. I don't know, it's a bromancy kind of film where these two kids go to a rave, and it's mostly shot in black and white until the moment where they get to the rave and things get very trippy and everything becomes psychedelic and multicoloured, and it's a wonderful film. Not many people have seen it, I believe. It's kind of flown under the radar because it's an independent Scottish film and black and white. From my previous tier list of David Fincher films that I'm not a big fan of black and white films, but for some reason this one really brought me in. Great soundtrack, happy hardcore, techno-y kind of soundtrack, and really feels like a 90s film. Great performances. Anyway, that's going in S. I mean, let's just end the discussion there. That's S right there. Strong recommend, please watch it, but make sure it's the UK one. I haven't seen the US one, but I imagine it's very different because US, UK make different films. Next on my list of rave films is Go. Go is a American crime comedy film from 1999, directed by someone, and is about three different stories of people who are interlocked and connected in some way. So it's like three different angles to a story. It's very 90s. Like, I think even when it was released, it came off as dated. The reason it fits on this list is because it centers around a rave most of its characters are going to, or going to meet at, or reunite at. I had a great time with this one, and this is one of those films that I watched at the time when I was just getting into film and rave culture and dance music and things like that. I'm gonna rank it lower because it's not really a rave film. It's set around a rave. Like, that's the inciting incident in the film is a rave, but it's not really a rave film. It's quite dramatic, quite funny, kind of like Pulp Fiction, but with dance music, or late 90s pop music. But I like it, although Timothy Olyphant is in it, and, bit of a crush. The next film is Groove. Now, I've not seen this. Full disclaimer, I've not seen this film. Couldn't find it anywhere. I've seen it on a few different lists of rave-related films, and they ranked it quite low. And because our tier list here is missing anything at the C tier, I'm going to put this in C. that's it. But the rest of the films I have seen, so let's, put this into context. There's only one film that I've not seen, and it's that one. My next tier list that I'm going to make in the next few days is about Christmas films, and I can guarantee you that I've seen half of those, and I don't intend to change that. So count yourself lucky that I've seen these films, just not Groove. Also, one of my favourite bands is Groove Armada. This is not about them. This film is not about them at all. So, I don't know, let's just move on from this, because I've got nothing else to say about this film, other than it has a man carrying a mirror ball on a subway train. So, I mean, I like mirror balls, but we also have a mirror ball at B tier for Birding Calling. So, I don't know, I think I need to watch this film before I make any further comment, but I'm not going to, because I can't find it anywhere. So, if you have a copy of Groove and you want to post it to me, then find my address. Although I'm moving soon, so you won't be able to do that. And also you won't find my address anywhere, I hope. I don't know. Don't matter if you can, I'm not that bothered. The next film is How to Have Sex, and this is a film that kind of inspired this whole week of rave that I've been indulging in this week. Fairly recent film, as I mentioned earlier, about a group of girls who go to Malaga? Malia? One of those holiday destinations. I don't know where Malia is, but it might be there, I don't know. It's a British rite of passage to go on one of these types of holidays. I haven't done it because I was sad and lonely when I was a teenager. My parents took me to Austria and Italy, but that's not the same thing, really. This film is a group of girls who go on one of these holidays that I never got to do. Maybe that's had an effect on my life in general, I don't know. Introduced me to someone who is a version of me that did go to those kind of holidays, and I don't know, let me know if they're better than me. I don't know, I get bored on those sort of holidays, so don't make a film about me going on one of these holidays, because I'll just be in my room or at the pool all day and night. I don't want to go clubbing. It's too warm. It's really hot in those places. I don't drink that much, although I do tonight, but I don't normally drink that much, so I don't know. Anyway, this film is great. Wonderful performances by everyone, but especially the main character and the main actress, should I say. It's more of a film about relationships and meeting someone new and subjects like consent than it is about raves, but I think it encapsulated what I imagine those types of scenarios are like. So this is quite easily going into A tier. This may change on a rewatch, but I really, really enjoyed this film, and I watched it in the cinema a couple of weeks ago, last week. Weekend just gone. Would recommend that. Next we have a film called It's All Gone Pete Tong. For anyone who doesn't know Cockney rhyming slang, It's All Gone Pete Tong means it's all gone wrong, because Pete Tong rhymes with wrong. Simple, right? It's like apples and pears is stairs, a butcher's hook is have a look. Consider yourself at home. This film is about a DJ, producer type person who goes deaf. It's like Sound of Metal but with dance music. Now, when this film first came out, it was a comedy, and watching it now, it still has its moments of humour where you feel like this should be funny, but it's not, so it doesn't really work in that respect. Hearing loss is an important factor when it comes to loud music and events like clubs and raves and concerts and things like that. And the film I mentioned earlier, Sound of Metal, is excellent in kind of portraying the risk involved in being surrounded by loud music at all times, or most of the time. This is a weird one because it's not a bad film, but it's also not a good film, and it has no particular redeeming qualities that makes me want to watch it. However, it's interesting subject matter, and I feel like if it was made with a more serious tone, a la Sound of Metal, then it would be more successful. Because ultimately, to be a good DJ, I don't know, I'm not a good DJ, so I don't know what I'm talking about. So for this one, I'm going to throw this on the basis of it not really being a rave film, even though it's about raves and DJs, I'm putting this in C. Like I rewatched it this weekend, and weekend just gone, and it's not got that many rave elements in it. It's more about some guy going crazy about his loss of hearing in what I imagine is quite an unrealistic way, like the way he reacts to it. Yeah, if it was made today, I think it'd be a good film. Sorry, I didn't sleep very well. Neighbours are doing some work again. Different neighbours this time. I don't mind, you know. I live in a terraced house, so I have a house there and a house there, and the walls are quite thin when it comes to drilling and noise. Anyway, that's not important. That's not why we're here. Next film is Kevin and Perry Go Large. This is a terrible film. It's bad. It's a really bad film, but I still love it. It's one of those films that I grew up with, kind of. I mean, I was 19 when this came out, and the idea of these approaching middle-aged actors playing teenagers, one of which is not even the right gender, is just so ridiculous and profound and nonsense. However, the soundtrack is great. Like, the soundtrack really signifies noughties dance music, like late 90s, early noughties dance music. And I just don't really know I don't know how I feel about this one, because it's a terrible film. It's ridiculous. It's not funny. It's aged incredibly poorly. But the fact is, they still have Kevin and Perry club nights. The official Kevin and Perry, who were impersonators who dress up like Kevin and Perry and dance on stage like Kevin and Perry would do. And I've been to one of those, and it was a great night. So I think we all know it's bad, but we love it anyway. So where do I put it on a tier list? Because it's an important film in this subject, but also I'll come back to that one. Let me know in the comments where you think I should put Kevin and Perry, but I'm going to come back to that. Speaking of bad films, the next one is A Night at the Roxbury, which is a bad film. I'm not entirely sure why this has been put on this list. It wasn't me. I mean, it was me, I made the list, but it wasn't. If you haven't seen it, don't. It's basically a Saturday Night Live sketch that has been blown up into a feature-length film. Kind of like Wayne's World, but nowhere near as good as Wayne's World. This is a really easy one to rank. Clearly S. I mean, obviously we all know that this deserves to be an S tier. Next is Party Monster. This is a weird one to find. I did find it. I'm surprised that I found it. It's this incredibly low-budget film starring Seth Green and Macaulay Culkin of Home Alone fame prior to this, and other things, but, you know, most people know him from Home Alone. About two party monsters. They're famous for being famous, like Paris Hilton was. They don't do anything other than they are famous, and they go to, like, they promote club nights at this very small club in New York, I think, and they dance around a bit in glorious outfits. Then they end up murdering at least one person. This is a bad film, and it's definitely not a rave film, but it's also, I'm so glad I found it and watched it. I don't know, I'm thinking maybe I've done this wrong. Nah. I'm going to move. It's all on Pete Tong. No, I'm not. I'm leaving that exactly where it is. I'm going to put Party Monster at C as well. It's strange. I think someone online said it might have been a $90 budget. I don't know. It's a joke. I've just ruined the joke there. This is definitely better research than David Fincher tier list, but only by a margin, so we're getting there. Fucking hell. Doing for an hour. The next film on the list is Project X, which is loosely based on a true story.
Corey, thanks for joining us. The only question that I can think to ask is, what were you thinking?
I wasn't really.
Of a house party that gets over-promoted on Craigslist and local radio in LA and ends up with thousands of people attending, and things go very, very crazy and weird, and everything burns down, and yeah. So again, not really a rave film, because it's not at a rave, unless you count house parties as raves. But it does fit the criteria otherwise, like there's lots of dancing and music, good soundtrack. There are drugs, again, quite important in rave culture. So yeah, I'm putting it on my list. That's why it's on here, because I put it on my list. I adore this film. See, I like found footage films, like found footage horror, like Blair Witch Project, which, I don't know, it's got little handprints on it. But I love Blair Witch Project and films that are inspired by that or came from that. This isn't horror, but it's in the same style, like found footage. So everything is made from handheld cameras, or it seems like handheld cameras. I've never been to a party quite like this in real life. I have been to smaller house parties that have gone a bit wild, but not to the extent of this. And this is like, imagine the wildest party you've been to and then multiply it by 1,000. I think on that basis, this film does a great job of recreating that. If I'm gearing myself up for a night out, or to go to a party or whatever, I've got a birthday party coming up in a few weeks. I'm going to, be watching this a few times before then, my birthday party. I'm turning 20. This is one of those films that I will put on to get myself ready for that. Not that I want that sort of party to happen to me. I care about my possessions, and I rent, so I don't want to lose my deposit. Yes, love Project X. I have it on Blu-ray. I don't know what the difference is between the extended version and the original version, but I love it, so whatever. That's rated an S. That's easy. It's funny how the good ones are easy. Speaking of good ones, we have We Are Your Friends. I am joking. It's terrible. This is about a DJ who is played by Zac Efron, who's trying to get into the music industry and figure out life and all that stuff. I really wanted this film to be good because I'm unashamedly a fan of Catfish, the TV show. This is directed by Max Joseph, who is Max from Catfish and left Catfish because he was busy doing films and stuff. And this is what he came up with, is this film called We Are Your Friends. And it's not good in any way. I don't know if it's because I'm from England or the UK or whatever you want to call it, and this is about the American party scene, so maybe I should be more forgiving of this, especially since I love Project X, which is, you know, set in America, and the whole house party thing is very different over there than it is here. But I've been to a number of club nights and raves and events in America. Like I went to Life is Beautiful festival this year. I've been to various clubs in Vegas, Portland, LA. I've been out in America, and it just seems so stale and so VIP favoritism and all that stuff. Compare that to England. From my experience, all the parties and raves I've been to have been messy. Even festivals like Glastonbury, Boomtown, Creamfields, all the other ones I've been to have been messy and dirty and grimy, and we don't care. Like, that's the whole point, is we just kind of throw all that to one side for a weekend or a night, and it's about that grime. And that this came off as a possibly someone's favourite film out there, but it wasn't representative of my experience with dance music and DJs and things like that. That was a very insightful comment on this film, which it doesn't deserve. So yeah, that's going quite happily down here in D tier, next to Night at the Roxbury. Sorry, Max, please make a better film. And Zac Efron, you can do better as well. You have done better. But, you know, we move on. Coming to the end of the list now, we have the final film, not including the ones I've skipped, because I'm waiting for you to comment down below. Also, while you're at it, click subscribe and like, and touch that bell, like fondle that bell a little bit. There's a bell next to the subscribe thing, I think. Just fondle it. I don't know what it does. Apparently it's a good thing if you press that. For both of us, like, you'll get benefits and I'll get benefits. It's like friends with benefits. So dingle that bell, and we'll see what happens. Let me know what happens. Hope it's not annoying. I don't want to annoy my viewers more than I already am. But the next film is Weekender, which is about some club promoter. Again, it's a Manchester film, so I should love this. It's about a group of club promoters who start doing their club nights, but then get wrapped up in crime and gangs and stuff. Because, right, so to try and summarise my knowledge on the subject, you have clubs where you go and dance to music, and most people at those clubs don't buy alcohol. This is something that's also covered in 24-Hour Party People, but generally people who go to these sort of clubs don't drink a lot. They take drugs instead. Now, drugs are illegal, so you can't buy drugs out of clubs. So people aren't buying alcohol either, so these clubs don't make any money. So you end up getting these gangs of drug dealers who go to these clubs, and it's all very under the radar, and, you know, they don't want to announce it to everyone that they have drug dealers, but most of these clubs, even to this day, drug dealers who kind of work for the club, or they work in the club but not for the club. You know what I mean? Like, they're in the club every night. So if you end up bringing your own drugs in, that's why you have bouncers on the door to stop you from bringing your own drugs in. That's not the only reason, just to be clear. I'm not saying we should get rid of bouncers because they serve a good purpose. I'm just digging myself into a hole. But yes, essentially, Weekender, the film, is all about that kind of clashing of gangs and things like that. And then it's extortion, and there's drama, and it started off well, even for this low budget film. Then it just turns into any typical noughties English gritty drama crime thriller thing, and loses its way by the end. And I didn't even finish this one. So this is I don't know, because it's set in Manchester. For most of it, it's set in Manchester, so I'm again biased. Where would you put this one, Heidi? Heidi's name has a D in it, so I'm going to put this in D tier. Yes, no, I'm putting this in D because it was terrible. Right, now all of these films so far have been movies, films, dramas, like narrative features. I've got one last one to put on this list, which is a documentary of sorts. It's basically a live recording of a rave or a party that happened many years ago down on Brighton Beach by Fatboy Slim, who is known as one of the greatest DJs in England, who lives in Brighton, but is also associated with Hull, which is where I'm from. And there's been a few times when people have said that I look like him, but probably not today because I'm wearing his hat. I'm not taking it off. Anyway, so yes, this is more of a documentary. It's a documentary crossed with a live film, and so it doesn't really fit on the list with everything else I've discussed. But just because I want to draw attention to it, it is on YouTube. Last time I checked, it's on Fatboy Slim's official page, or you can buy it on DVD or Blu-ray or streaming services. This really captures the vibe of raves at that time, like late 90s, early noughties. Not necessarily in a good way either. Like there's people seen passing out and having complications with drugs and things like that, overcrowding. But it's a really, really fun watch. And I, all honesty, strongly recommend this one. So I'm putting this at A, just because I don't want to put it in S, because it's not a narrative feature like the other movies that we've got on this list. I want you to watch this. So go and find it on YouTube. It's an hour and a half of good music, good setting. It's authentic. I was really impressed with this one when I found it last year, or this year. Here it's gone. Right, so now we come to the end of the video, and I hope you've enjoyed it, because I certainly have, as I'm sure you can tell. I'm having a great time. There's nothing better than watching films than talking about them. Come to Blade and Kevin and Perry. Okay, so, right. Oh, this is hard because I've just read your comments in the description below this video, which some would say is impossible because this video won't go up until I finish it, and I'm reading comments in the future. And there might be no comments at all. It might be that no one comments on this video whatsoever. No one even watches it, so this is a complete lie and a fabrication. But in some universe out there, I've got hundreds of comments on this video, and they're all telling me to put Blade in B, because the title starts with the letter B. But it also has a D in it, and it doesn't really fit in with the rest of this list. So to compromise, I'm going to put this in C. Thank you so much for your comment. That's what I've come up with. Thanks to you, viewers, and also for Kevin and Perry. Terrible, terrible film, but so important to where we are now. With, as I said, if you've been to a UK festival, you'll know what I'm talking about. So I'm gonna sneak this one in at B tier. I hope you don't hate me for it not being higher or lower. I think that's a good spot for it because it's bad. It's so bad, in fact, that I have the DVD of it. And it's in one of those stupid cardboard cases, cardboard/plastic cases, where you have to click it like that, then it opens up, and inside is a DVD. And this one's even got an extra, like, it even says here, tour a virtual Ibiza for a rinsing selection of special features. Visit the airport for subtitle selection, a web link to the official website. Just gonna see if it's still up. Hang on. kevinandperry.co.uk. No, that's no longer a website. This is how dated this is. It has an audio commentary, which I didn't realise I might actually watch that, because I don't know. I'm going to watch Trainspotting 2 and the audio commentary for Kevin and Perry Go Large tonight. Oh, I don't know. There's so much good stuff on here, like the special effects reel showing how they did the zit gun and the secret of the floater. And a quiz. There's a quiz. Yeah, okay, I'm moving this up to A. Just because I was born in the 80s/90s, so I feel like yeah, so there we go. My list is complete. Please let me know in the comments if I betrayed you in any way, if I've missed any films that you think I should probably watch based on this thing I've made here, and fondle that bell, give it a little fondle, let me know what happens. And yeah, thank you for watching so much, and also check out my other videos on the channel, which so far have been mostly movie related. There's other stuff on there too, if you're so inclined. And coming up in the next few weeks are some Christmassy stuff, because yay, Christmas is coming up and we all love Christmas. We have to love Christmas because it's Christmas, right? And yay. Thanks. Bye.